I'd like to take a minute and review some of the new features coming in CoolSim 5.2. One of the things that we're quite excited about is this new dashboard that we put up for a quick look at what's going on in your data center. This representation came out of some work with the Department of Energy and my good friend Magnus Herlin, who proposed this several years ago, and we put it into CoolSim. This dashboard allows you to take a look at the state of your data center. For example, RTI, which many of you will recognize from the DOE training or the data center training that is associated with the Department of Energy, the DCEP training, Data Center Energy Practitioner training, talks about RTI. RTI is a ratio of how much air the racks need to do their cooling as compared to how much air is being produced by all the air handlers in the room. You would generally like that to be 100%. In other words, the amount of air being delivered is exactly equal to the amount demanded by the racks. But for N+1 and for the issue of improper mixing of air in the room, it generally needs to be a little less. So the numerator needs to be smaller. These are percentages, so they take that ratio and multiply by 100 to give you a percentage. But you can see this data center is quite good. It's running near 100%, which means that the racks are getting just a little more air than they need, and that accounts for things like leakage. 98.3, and general numbers greater than 90 are good. The high, called RCI high, has to do with how many hotspots there are in the room and what the magnitude of them is. You can see here that this room is experiencing very little hotspots, if any at all, so this room is running quite nicely. RCI low is how many cold temperatures are there. You can run a data center too cold. It doesn't hurt the IT equipment, it just wastes energy. So you want this to be 100% as well. So you want these three to be 100. PUE, of course, is the measure of energy consumption compared to total energy delivered to the data center. So it's comparing IT energy to total energy. And good number would be 1. They'd be equivalent. Of course, 1 means there's no compression going on at all and no mechanical work to do the cooling. So a data center with a PUE of 1 means that the windows are open and you're letting natural convection come in and out of the room, which is typically implausible. However, this one is doing pretty good at 1.17. You'd like to get that number down. There are tools in CoolSim you can use now to calculate your PUE. It is a rough approximation still, but nonetheless useful. So that data center dashboard is now displayed on every room. Every data center that uses internal modeling will display this output. We've also made some improvements to the VFD, the variable fan drive. This has been a feature of CoolSim for some time. But what we're allowing now is the idea of a reference sensor. The way we had done it before is the pressure or temperature of the sensor in the room was being compared to room average pressure or temperature. The problem with that is in a room designed like this one where you have hot aisles going into the ceiling, the average room temperature takes those into account. So what happens is that reference room temperature tends to rise. So the reference was rising. In order to fix that, we went to the added complexity of now defining the reference sensors. You have a new tab here that's called reference sensor, and you can define it. I would recommend that you label your sensors, as I have done here, so that you know when you have a big list of available sensors which ones are the reference sensor, because you've labeled them with something in the front or whatever you want to do to signify them as reference. You can trigger them with a variety of conditions, including average, max, min, or RMS. So that's a new feature that we've added. We've improved post-processing. It was always difficult to know where exactly the plane was in the scene prior to running post. So now we have added a visibility switch so you can turn on your plane and actually see where it's going to be in the room when it processes. CoolSim has always been able to produce down in the lower left-hand corner where the cursor position is in 3 space, but it wasn't perfect. The update wasn't perfect. Here what you can do is set them and then turn on the visibility flag, and it will show you right where that cut plane is so that you can see it and know just exactly prior to post-processing where that plane's going to be. We've done a lot of work in meshing to try to improve visualization of path lines, particularly out of PDUs and out of, or now what we call HDUs, heat dissipation units, as well as inlets and outlets. This is primarily for external flow, and we've changed the meshing setup and script so that you can have better visibility about things like thermal contamination, which is what I'm showing you right here. So here we've got air coming out of one and beginning to go into the other, and the wind is blowing here from left to right, so you can see it gets worse as you go down the line, and this is a classic problem with chillers on the rooftop like this one. We've also improved the meshing on simple outlets, so here's a generator down inside of this section of the data center, and you can see now path lines coming out of these generator outlets. These are quite small and difficult to mesh properly so that you can get some visualization on them. And we've added some capability to improve that, so it should be better now than certainly it was. We've also done a couple things in the output report. Again, this is predominantly for external flows. We've defined average inlet temperature, average exit temperature, and flow rate for a group of HDUs. So this represents a chiller. Often you'll have multiple fans in a chiller, and you are interested in really this number, average inlet temp, because the performance of these units will decline with inlet temp being high. I happen to have it in Rankine in this case, but you see here chiller group number 3. So if you group your chillers with a rubber band, it will come out like this now. It will allow you to see what the average inlet, average outlet, and what the flow rates are for those units. That it was a customer request for that. We also fixed some bugs in CoolSim 5.2. A problem was crack extensions that crept into the code, and it would show up where it wasn't wanted, and we couldn't get rid of it. So these are extensions on top of the cooling units that go to the ceiling. We now support rotation of groups, and when there's inlets and outlets, we rotate them correctly. There was a bug in the rotation, and the planes weren't getting set properly for inlets and outlets. That has now been repaired. So you can build, for example, a chiller or a generator and rotate it as a group. Plug fans to downflow crack units that was missing for some reason or had been switched out, we put it back in. Plug fan quantity was limited. We've resolved that. The ceiling default height reset condition kept happening. When you reloaded, it would reset. That crept into the code. We fixed that. Baffle orientation when rotating, I mentioned that already. So even if you have inlets and outlets or baffles, when you rotate the group, the plane now gets updated correctly. We had some issues with symbols in the model description field causing issues. We have repaired that. We have repaired kill job, so it now works properly. We've improved visibility. I showed you that. Cut planes, improved visibility. We fixed some issues with the room editor when exporting to the para file, which is one of the files we use for processing. The temperature value of the walls was not being updated correctly. We did some work on external flow, setting the min and max cut planes to be correct and a little more revealing, and we fixed an error on show connections when the crack wasn't in place, and when cloning crack objects with plenum extensions, it was popping on. We fixed that, and extensions in this extension thing kept popping up, can now be set to all or off, and also you can use a 0 in the plenum extension field if you choose. We also corrected the sort function in the pre-simulation report. That's pretty handy. You can sort and update your parameters right from the pre-simulation report for cracks and racks and other objects as well. So CoolSim continues. We've got this new release out this year, annual releases with new features. If you're interested in adding features or there's things you'd like to have in the software, please send us a note and we will try to get it into the next release. Thank you. Have a good day.